Hello everyone, it's time to talk about all 10 things that I read in the month of July. Kicking it off with a win was Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. This is my second book that I've read from this author. I read Kaikei a few years ago and loved it. It was in my top 10 of 2022. And I also loved Goddess of the River. I think Kaikei is still my favorite from this author, but I really enjoyed this story. In the afterword, the author was saying how, just like the original story that it's a retelling of, it has no good answers, but hopefully you found some good questions in it, and I definitely did find some good questions. So we are following the river goddess Ganga as she is cursed to live as a mortal, and these godlings who are also immortal and like to play along her shores, they all kind of get turned mortal, and there's some pretty tough topics in here. There's a lot of infanticide. One of her children ends up surviving, and we're kind of following his story as he grows up as a godling that has been turned mortal, and her story as a woman who knows that she is a goddess and knows that her son is immortal, trying to protect him from a mortal life. And there's a lot of considerations in here about morality and how to do the right thing, and a lot of lessons in here about how having such a strict code of ethics. There's a character in here who he never goes against his word, and so if he says he's going to do something, he does it no matter what. And if he pledges allegiance to someone, he's going to follow them no matter what. And this is his way of trying to do the right thing, because staying by your word is honorable. But what it ends up doing is ending him in these moral gray areas, or he ends up in situations where he knows the right thing to do is to go against what he said before and to change his mind. But he's so focused on this pact that he made with himself that he refuses to do that, and it ends up causing a lot of issues for himself and for the people that he loves. And I just thought it was a really interesting book full of really interesting questions. I got a little lost somewhere in the middle there, which is the only reason why I liked it less than Kaikei. It is just such an epic tale. It's covering so many characters and so much time that my little brain could not handle, but I thought it was incredibly well written and incredibly well done, and I will continue to read anything that this author puts out. I also read Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, and I really did enjoy it. I think this is one of my favorite Riley Sagers. I definitely enjoyed this one more than The Only One Left. My favorite Riley Sager is The House Across the Lake, which I know is many of your least favorite Riley Sager, so my taste in Riley Sager maybe means nothing to you, but I did enjoy Middle of the Night. We are following our main character. 30 years ago, his best friend disappeared. Someone cut a hole in the tent that he was in his backyard with his best friend in, and took his best friend, and no one has seen or heard from Billy since. We don't know what happened to him. 30 years later, he's back in his childhood home, and he's kind of being plunged back into this situation. New things are coming out about the case. He's feeling a presence. It was twisty, it was turny, it was entertaining. I didn't love the super small town dynamics. It just was a little bit too drama filled for me, but that's what you get when you read a thriller. I was shocked, I was surprised by the things that we found out. There were reveals that were not super related to the main plot that allowed us to get to know our main character a little bit more, that took me completely off guard, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised by their inclusion in this book. So overall, I had a really good time with this one, but not gonna make it onto my top 10 of the year by any means. Something that you will see probably on my top 10 of the year is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. This is one of my favorite horror books that I have ever read. I know every time I get really excited about a Paul Tremblay, most of you guys are not gonna enjoy it, but I really think you could love this one because it's got the slasher vibes all the way through, because we are filming a slasher. We're filming a horror movie, and we're watching these young people film this movie. The audiobook is so well produced. If you're someone who likes to read audiobooks, I highly recommend reading this on audiobook, because you can hear the script pages turning, and you can feel when you're in the scene of the movie as it's playing out versus when you're with the characters who are reading the script. It's so well produced. So we're following these young people who are making this movie. This movie was never released. 3 scenes were released on YouTube, and they have this cult-like following. There's so much lore behind what happened on set, and there's only one surviving cast member, and he plays the thin kid. Hollywood is doing a big budget reboot of this movie, and he's going to reprise his role as the thin kid in some scenes, and he's a part of that project. And so we're getting to kind of see him tell this story of what happened with the original filming of the movie, alongside how his life has gone since then, and finding out what's happening with this new movie and all the new considerations. It's just so incredibly well done. But the thing that I loved the most about this book is that it is such a real interpretation of what it is to be a young person who's really struggling with suicidal ideation. Huge content warning for that in this. Please be prepared for that if you read this book. It almost felt like to me that Paul Tremblay is using this horror movie slasher cult film exciting narrative structure to hide this incredibly important message about suicidal ideation and this idea of not wanting to be an active participant in your death, but wanting to be a passive participant in your death, and being able to have those conversations through art and through media and use that as a way to talk about it without talking about it. I thought this was incredibly, incredibly well done. It's gonna stick with me forever, and you will see it on my top 10 of the year. The next few books, by the way, are from my Summerween vlogs. There are 3 of them. If you missed them, I will link them in the description. Go back and watch them. I had a really great time with Summerween this year, and I read some incredible books, one of which is Final Girls by Mira Grant. This is my first book by Shauna Maguire under her horror thriller pen name, and I really loved it. I think I'm gonna have to go back and read her backlist of titles under this pen name because I really enjoyed Final Girls. This is a short novella about this woman who is investigating this new therapy, and it's like this virtual reality therapy in which you're taking people who have something they want to work through. Traditional therapy has failed them, so they come to do this new thing where they're basically put into a horror situation to heal that trauma. So like there are 2 siblings who really hate each other. They can't be in the same room as each other, and for reasons that I'll let you find out in the book, they want to reconcile their relationship. And so they go into this therapy, and they're basically in a slasher being final girls together. And when they come out the other side, they have such a strong connection to each other, and they bonded, and they're really healing their relationship. So our main character goes to investigate because she's really skeptical of this. She doesn't think it's gonna work. What ends up happening is a bit of a whirlwind of fake horror in the augmented reality situations we're seeing these therapies play out, and also some real life horror that's going on behind the scenes as well. I thought it was really entertaining, and like all of my favorite horror, it also had something to say about us as humans. So the thing that we're exploring in here is what genuine connection really is, and if a trauma bond is a genuine connection and how long that lasts. Conversations about if things happen in virtual reality, does that stick with you in real reality? I thought it was really great. Packed a punch in just 112 pages, and I love a book that respects her time. Then I picked up It Came From the Closet. I have not finished this, but I am going to include it in the wrap up because I think I'm gonna plan to just read a couple of these every Summerween and watch a couple of horror movies. So this year we watched Godzilla and Jennifer's Body, and I also read the essay from Jaws, as it's one of my favorite horror movies. These are queer authors who are writing essays about horror movies that impacted them. I thought that the Jennifer's Body essay in here was absolutely incredible. I loved it so much. The ones on Jaws and Godzilla were also good, but Carmen Maria Machado's essay on Jennifer's Body was so good, and it was a great excuse to watch that movie because I had never seen it before. I think these are all great, and I can't wait to read more of them in the future. Then I read Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies. This is such a romp. It's such a fun, silly, over-the-top book. If you like things like Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone and Finley Donovan and The Bandit Queens, I think you'd really like the tone of this. We're following an author who wrote these books based off some real life crimes that she was taking part in solving, and the guy that she was with, who she solved these crimes with, she used his real name in the books, and he ends up kind of blackmailing her and suing her and getting a cut of her royalties and a cut of her pay for this series that is now widely popular. They end up on this press tour, and she's sick of this blackmail, so she decides she's gonna kill him off in her books. He, in real life, comes to her and says, I think someone's trying to kill me in real life. And then we go on this wacky and absurd adventure trying to figure out if someone is trying to kill him and what's going on with that. I had a lovely time, and I would love to read more from this author in the future. I also finally read Mexican Gothic, which I am so happy about. I've been trying to read this for maybe 2.5 years now, and I really liked it. It was moldy, it was scary, it was everything that I want in a horror book, and I absolutely flew through this. I did not love the audiobook. I would not recommend recommend the audiobook. There's some English accents in it that were not my cup of tea, we'll say, but I really, really loved reading the physical copy of this. I had a great time getting to know our main character, Noemi, as she goes to visit her cousin at this moldy estate. Her cousin has married this guy quite quickly and has sent back a really concerning letter. So Noemi goes, she's there to investigate, to try to figure out what's going on with her cousin, uncovers some things over there. This guy, gross, content warning for some cannibalism mentioned, which I was not expecting. There's a lot of really great classism conversations in here, eugenics conversations in here. I thought it was a really well done horror book, and I am always looking for more fungal horror. So happy about this. Then I read The Stars Did Wander Darkling. This is a middle grade horror, which was very difficult for me to rate and review for you because I obviously am not a middle grade person and this was not written for me. I found it to be very Stranger Things-esque, but obviously written for a younger crowd. Got this group of friends. There's a construction site where a new hotel's supposed to be going in, but they uncover some caves, uncover some things going on in the caves. Our first scene is some guy eating some dirt, which was interesting. There is some gory imagery in here, like a zebra dragging its bloody entrails around. So heads up on that. I thought it was very well written, but it's not what I prefer to read. Too middle grade to be horror that I enjoyed, but too horror to be middle grade that I enjoyed, if that makes sense. I prefer my middle grade to be cozy, so now I know that about myself and my taste. Okay, now I have two books that I have not spoken to you at all about, and I have so much to say about them because they were not included in any vlogs. I read Space Opera by Kat Valente. For those of you who have been here over the past couple of months, Kat Valente is one of my new favorite authors. She may be inching up, creeping up on T. Kingfisher as my favorite author of all time. I am obsessed with Catherine Valente. I love her books so much, and every single one of them is completely different. I have read Comfort Me with Apples, which is horror, Deathless, which is this literary, historical fantasy, one of the most incredible, disturbing, dark representations of war that I have ever seen, but also fairy tale. Then I read The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making, which is just cozy fantasy through and through. And now Space Opera, which is like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy met Eurovision met an acid trip, and it is incredible. I love this book so much. Our main character is sort of this washed up rock star. This alien species comes to planet Earth, tells the entirety of humanity, hey, we've noticed that you may or may not be sentient, but you guys, you've done some questionable things, so we need to make sure that you are sentient. You can kind of hang out with us in the big leagues before we start trading with you because we're worried that you might try to kill all of us. So if that's the vibe that you're going down, if you're not really sentient and you're just trying to kill everything, then we're gonna have to completely annihilate your planet. Your one choice to not become annihilated is to come up with an original song and sing it at our Eurovision Galaxy Edition. And if you don't come in dead last, we'll let you live. But if you do come in dead last, you're toast. It was hilarious. It was heartfelt. The aliens that we encountered were disgusting, cute, weird, just completely ran the gamut of everything that you could think of. We're having conversations about regret and love and the worth of a life, and also conversations about being different and being average and the benefits and detriments to both of those things. Obviously, lots of conversations about the worth of music and art. I loved this so much. It was exactly what I needed in the moment. I feel like we read a lot of horror this month, a lot of scary, dark things, and this was just so entertaining to read. I loved it so much. If you are a fan of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you need to pick this up and read it right now. If you like anything that is wacky and weird and deeply profound, you need to pick this up. Please, please, please read this book. I loved it so much. And I'm so bummed that I didn't vlog myself reading it because now I only get this one opportunity to convince you to read it. So here I am saying again, please read this book. I loved it so much. I keep telling you that things are going to be in my top 10 of the year. I'm going to have a really hard time making my top 10 because I want to put this in there too. It was so good, but I already know the Deathless is going to be in there, and I can't have two Catherine Valentes in the same top 10, so I don't really know what I'm going to do with myself, but I love this a lot, and I want you to read it. And then the last thing, I just finished it today, is Ripe. This is by Sarah Rose Etter, and it was weird in a literary way. I'm going to make a recommendation here, and I have not read My Year of Rest and Relaxation. But if you like that type of vibe, I would say like the Sally Rooney, the sad girl books, you're really going to like this one. Again, have not read My Year of Rest and Relaxation, so I can't really make this comparison, but I would say that this book is kind of like My Year of Rest and Relaxation meets Several People Are Typing? Let me explain. Our main character is severely depressed. She is followed around by a black hole, and she works in San Francisco at a Silicon Valley startup. And she kind of lives two lives in the way that she turns her fake self on when she is at work, when she is being asked to do these increasingly horrendous and ridiculous things for her job, as she tries to keep up with rising housing costs and social interactions and this relationship with this person who can never give her what she needs and wants. And all the while she's being followed by this black hole, haunted by this black hole, and she just feels like she is constantly struggling to exist and to survive. It's absurd, it's ridiculous, it's sad, it's very literary. I had a good time with it. I think especially if you're someone who has worked in or around the startup world, you will appreciate this. I work for a startup. It's not a Silicon Valley startup. It's not a venture-backed startup. So my work is not the levels of absurdity that I'm seeing in this book, but as someone who is in all of those spaces, it was really, really good to see that made fun of in this book, and also called out for how toxic and how absolutely insane all of that can be. And that was everything that I read this month. I had a really great reading month. I'm really excited to go into August. I'm actually filming this right now on July 22nd, so I still have like 9 or 10 days left of the month to go, and I'm really proud of myself for having read 10 things already in this month. But some exciting things are happening that I will hopefully tell you about next week, which is why I'm not able to read for this month for the rest of this month. Anyways, I will tell you guys about all of that soon, but I'm really happy with the way that my reading has been going. I would love to hear in the comments how your reading has been going. Are you feeling like you're finding things that you're liking? Are you feeling like you're in a bit of a slump this year? I want to know in the comments, especially if you have things that you've been loving, especially if you have things that you think I might love as well. I am of course always looking to add to my ever-growing TBR. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I will see you all next week. If you're new here, I would love for you to subscribe and join a little community. I love you all so very much, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye.